kiss at Cleveland and not giving it a second thought. He would never say a thing like that. I really feel like that quote proves my point, that the reason that this was a difficult decision for him, even if, let's say, he was leaning 75% towards Miami, 25% still, feeling connected to Cleveland, still, that created a pull inside him. And that quote, to me, proves it. It's for him to say that 6 days after the decision, after all the anger being vented in his direction, it tells me that part of him never wanted to leave. Maybe his girlfriend never wanted to leave. And he's not leaving. He's staying in Akron, which is incredible to me.
We'll see about that.
Okay.
There's already stories of him trying to maintain a normal lifestyle. He was out at Cedar Point, which is just west of Cleveland. And by the way, we consider that part of our market, too, where Cedar Point is, even though it's about 45 minutes, an hour drive away, just like we do Akron. That's the thing. Akron's a little further separated than Minneapolis, St. Paul, but we use that scenario here in northeastern Ohio as to our brothers and sisters in Akron.
Right.
But you know the stories that are coming out. He may think that he can maintain a normal lifestyle here. It's impossible. He can't possibly do that, let alone think that there's any realistic chance that he would come back to Cleveland. But let me ask you this. What was the first thing you asked him on the phone interview after the betrayal?
The first thing I asked him, well, I wouldn't swear to it, but I'm pretty sure that the first thing I asked him was what anyone would ask him. How are you feeling about being this public villain and being condemned and derided and criticized? And I think I pretty much led off with the obvious. How are you feeling in the wake of this? And then segued almost immediately, I think, I'm trying to remember, into what would you do differently?
And did he not respond nothing?
He would do, nothing at all. And that's where we had a laugh, because I said, well, something. Because people were even criticizing the shirt he wore, and people were criticizing Jim Gray, the host. I said, surely you would do something different. And that's where he said, maybe next time, as if there could ever be a next time, I'll have you be the host. And we had a laugh about that because it was so ridiculous. And I don't know if he was being serious or if he was putting his game face on or if he was being stubborn, refusing to admit. It's even possible that he was being loyal to the people around him who on the phone with me sounded like they felt just swamped with regret about creating this, putting him in this situation.
No matter what he does in Miami, I'm from a sports legacy aspect, there is no way now, no matter how many championships they win, can he ever, let me see if you agree with this, can he ever be put in the same category, legacy-wise now, with Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Well, I noticed that you left Kobe out of that list.
Kobe Bryant as well. Yes, Kobe Bryant as well.
The only thing I would say to you then is I heard people saying the same thing and worse when Kobe had three rings and Colorado was a recent memory. I heard people saying over and over, doesn't matter what Kobe does, he'll never be mentioned among the greats because this Colorado thing is a stain. And I don't hear anybody mentioning Colorado anymore. I don't hear anybody saying anything bad about Kobe.
But would you not agree in that case, that is, the American public, JR, I believe is becoming very used to high-profile athletes getting involved in scandals. That's different than this case. Again, as you alluded to earlier, going from hero to villain. We've never seen anything like this in our lives.
Right. No, I think that's why we're in uncharted waters. Because we've never seen anything like this, I wouldn't predict. I mean, I think that what you're saying, I can make that case too, that yes, no matter how many championships he wins, he'll never be mentioned with the greats. But I can argue the other side just as easily because I've seen winning change public perceptions so many times in my life. I mean, A-Rod, my God, A-Rod, I'm a New Yorker by birth, so I've watched A-Rod rehabilitate himself with just one championship. I think winning is the great disinfectant, and if he wins, I know Clevelanders will have to pull over to the side of the road if they hear me say this, but if he should win 3 championships or 4 in Miami, I just don't know that people will still be talking about the decision. And, I mean, Brett Favre, you can hear the world rolling their eyes at Brett Favre today. But if he comes back and leads Minnesota to the Super Bowl and wins it, forget about it. I mean, there's so much annoyance with Brett Favre right now. There's so much anger at him, the drama queen thing, the diva thing. But if he comes back and does something remarkable the way he did last year, it will all be forgotten. I think that's how sports is. And I'm not saying that's how it should be, but I would never predict definitively that X number of championships won't change.
Maybe that perception I could agree with you in other portions of the country, but not here.
No, I'm
because
not.
The Art Modell case came up yesterday here because of your piece with James. You know, here's another thing. I want you to know this for your own information, JR, that in all the years that he was here, he never granted local interviews. Jordan did when he was in Chicago. Magic Johnson did when he was in Los Angeles. He never granted any. And I'm not talking selfishly, because even though our network, we're a regional television sports network that envelops the state of Ohio, but I get calls and emails from all over the country from people that go to their cable providers and want this network, so they pay $5-10 extra a month and they can stay in touch if they're transplanted. But had he established a rapport and a relationship, again going back to a point that you observed in your interviews with him, his PR, his management, his handlers failed atrociously in that regard.
Yes. I mean, that seems to me to lie right at the heart of this, that people around him should have been, if he didn't like to be interviewed, tough, get good at it, get better at it, get comfortable with this. This is a part of your life. You can't be this famous. You can't be this followed without doing interviews. And so if you don't like it, well, we got to work on that. Just like the pull-up jump shot, you've got to work on this. He's a businessman. I can't imagine that as a businessman he doesn't realize that this has got to be a part of his skill set. And if he doesn't realize it, I'm sorry. I blame the people around him for not making him realize it. He spends the vast majority of his time working on his game. I just don't think he has the time to think these things through. He pays a lot of money to people around him to think these things through for him. They should have told him, you don't want to do local media interviews? Tough. You're doing local media interviews, and you're gonna get better at this. And we're going to practice with questions. I think that's I put that on the people around him. I don't know why they didn't do that. I suspect that they.
Well, we would say to the, and I agree with you. Yeah. That's what supposedly their job is. But we question what those people around him would be doing for a living if he wasn't this God-given, extraordinary basketball talent. Mm-hmm. So I wonder what their real credentials are. One final question for you, JR, and I thank you for giving us this time. What was his facial expression, and did his demeanor change when you asked him about Gilbert?
I wish I could tell you what his.
That was on the phone. That's right.
On the phone, but I will tell you that his voice, the change in his voice, is. I still remember it. I will tell you that. In that Q&A you referred to, I talked about how LeBron has been interviewed so long, so often since he was 12 years old. I mean, he's avoided interviews as much as he can, but there's always that locker room. Since he was a kid, he's been interviewed, and I think he's learned to give canned answers and programmed answers, and he falls back on those a lot. But and he did with me. But when I asked him about the owner of the Cavs, the shift in his voice was it was really dramatic. It dropped an octave, and he sounded, I would say, both angry and hurt. And I think it's mostly, if I can infer from what he was saying about the charge that he quit and that he was a coward. That seems to be what hit home.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
I think also that this elbow is potentially a bigger issue than any of us realized. I mean, there was no explanation for it during the playoffs. It troubled him obviously greatly. Who knows how much? But for it to still be bothering him so long